You know, most officers don't get hurt because they're reckless. They get hurt because they get comfortable. But there's a big problem that nobody in administration wants to talk about, and it's putting you in danger. Every single shift that you guys work. Now, if you've been watching what's happening in corrections, and I mean, have you been really watching? You already see the warning signs. Give you some examples. Texas. Texas has more than 100 prison units and around 20,000 correctional officers. But the report shows about a quarter of those correctional officer positions sitting empty. That's not a small gap. That's a system running short on the people who keeps it standing. The state of Georgia is pumping money into salary increases, promotion step adjustments, and even funding hundreds of new correctional officer positions just to improve the staff to inmate ratio. Let's go to the state of New York. Their overtime problem exploded, with corrections being one of the biggest drivers of a statewide overtime. Because when you don't have enough officers, the ones left behind, they get forced of the weight. This isn't just about a staffing issue. This is about a safety issue. And every officer walking into a dorm, every officer walking in a chow hall, rec yard, even closed management unit feels it. These ain't isolated stories. This is the entire profession right now. Facilities all over this country are running at 60 and 70% staffing, if they're lucky. And that don't just mean longer shifts. It means fewer eyes on the yard, fewer hands during count, fewer bodies during something goes wrong. And here's what I need you to understand. The danger is simply, or not simply, the numbers on a spreadsheet. The dangers is what those numbers mean when you're walking a tier by yourself and something jumps off. We're going to start off with point number one: fewer eyes equals blind spots. Fewer eyes means more blind spots, and inmates knows exactly when those blind spots are. Think about a normal shift with full staffing. You got an officer on the yard. You got somebody in the control room watching cameras. You even have a rover checking the blind corners. And you got somebody on a tier. If something happens, there is backup close by. Somebody sees what's going on. Somebody responds to it. And now take that same facility and cut the staffing level by 40%. That officer on the yard, he's also covering that tier. The rover, he got mandated to another housing unit. The cameras are still there, but guess what? The officer in the control room is watching twice as many cameras, watching twice as many feeds as normal. He's going to miss something, and it's not going to be his fault. It's simple math. You can't watch 16 camera feeds at the same time and catch everything that you normally watch on 8. So now you got a gap. You got stretch of time, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, where nobody's watching a particular area, and I promise you, the one person that knows, the inmates clock those gaps faster than the administration would ever know. They know when shift change leaves a window. They know when count pulls officers to one side of the facility. They know when weekends runs lighter than the weekdays. Contraband moves in those gaps. Fights starts in those gaps. Assaults happen in those gaps. And the officers who walks into one of those gaps without knowing is a gap, guess what? That officer is walking into an ambush. I've seen it. All right. Facilities I know was running about 55% on a Saturday. 2 officers covering what normally took 4. An inmate got jumped in the day room during a 15-minute window when both officers were tied up on separate incidents. By the time anybody got there, he was already on the ground, and the officer who responded walked into a situation blind. No idea what they were walking into. There's no backup immediately available. Both of them got hurt. Not because they did anything wrong, because there wasn't enough of people. Not enough of people. You know, inexperience getting thrown into the deep end. Let me know down below if you got this going on. Number 2, and this one makes me really mad when I see it. When you're running on a skeleton crew, who's getting hired? Anybody with a pulse? I ain't exaggerating. States are dropping their standards. They're shortening the academies. They're waiving the requirement we used to have from non-negotiable. Why? Because we're desperate. We need the bodies. We need the bodies in the uniforms, and we need you rushed through the training. We're not producing correctional officers, guys. We're not. You're producing warm bodies with badges. Now here's where it gets dangerous for you, the experienced officers. When a facility is hemorrhaging staff who's training the new people, you are, but you're also working doubles. You're also covering vacancies. You don't have the time to properly mentor a rookie. So what happens? That rookie, in maybe 2 weeks of shadowing, if they're lucky, really, and then they're on their own. Threw them out there to the wolves. And I'm going to be straight with you. A rookie who does not know what they're doing is a liability to everyone on that shift, including you. They don't know how to read body language yet. They don't know when an inmate is testing them. They don't know how to hold their position during a disturbance. They get scared. They freeze. Or worse, they overreact. I know because senior officers do it. And now you've got a situation where a trained officer would have handled it in 30 seconds. And it's turned into a full-blown incident. 5 new guys quits within the first month. That's what I'm hearing from facilities all over this country. Not because they're weak, because they're thrown in the wolves. No preparation, no mentorship, and nobody watching their back. And they realize this real quick. This ain't what they signed up for. But before they quit, they're on your ship. They're in your housing unit. They're supposed to be watching your back. And they don't know how. We're rushing it. That ain't their fault. That's the system. But it don't change the fact that on any given shift right now, the person next to you might be there 3 weeks out of the academy with no clue what they're walking into. 2 weeks of shadowing, 5 quits within the first month. 3 weeks out, the academy closes on a vascular warning that everybody experienced officer will feel. Now, while you're watching, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We're building a community of officers who actually talks about what's happening behind the gates. Not the sugar-coated version. This is what's going on nationwide. And this is not the bash any administration out there. This is a problem across the country. Number 3, the violence escalates cycle. And this is the one that administration really don't want to hear, the violence escalate cycle. Here's how it works. Understaffing means you can't run programs. No education. Vocational training got shot. Recreation has been shot down. Inmates sit in their cells all day with nothing to do. They're restless. They get agitated. Tension rises. And now add lockdowns. When the incident happens and now you don't have enough of staff to handle it safely. What's the default? Let's lock the unit down. We're going to lock it down. Lock down the facility. But lockdown don't solve the problem. When they compound it, inmate who has already restless are now confined 23 hours a day. They're angry. They're stressed. They're looking for somebody to take it out on. And who is the nearest target? You, the officer in the dormitory. So now you got more fights, more assaults on staff, more use of force incidents, which means more officers get hurt, which means more officers call out, which means more vacancies, which means more understaffing. And that cycle starts again. I've watched this spiral happen in real time. Facilities go from manageable to crisis in 6 months. Not because anything changed with the inmate population, it's because the staffing drops below critical. Thresholds where everything else falls apart. Once you cross that line, it ain't just harder to run the facility, it's dangerous. Every day, every shift. And the officers who stay, the ones who don't quit, the ones who keep showing up, They're absorbing all of this, the stress, the danger, the overload. They're the ones walking into housing units where the temperature is already boiling because inmates haven't had recreation in 3 weeks. They're the ones who have to put hands on somebody because a fight broke out over a big bag of chips. Because when you lock people up with nothing to do, a bag of chips becomes worth fighting over. That is not a safe working environment. And no amount of officer safety training fixes it if the facility is running on fumes. You know the escalation case study? Let me tell you about it. Let me tell you about an officer, a good officer, 8 years in, solid reputation, the kind of officer you want on your shift. Facility was running at 60% staffing for about 4 months straight when things started going sideways. All right, one night, an inmate in his housing unit started acting erratic. Mental health issues. The kind of thing that in a fully staffed facility, you have a crisis intervention team to handle. But there was no crisis team available. They've been disbanded 6 months earlier because of budget. So it's just him and one other officer. Inmates gets combative. They try to de-escalate. But it's one of those situations where talking ain't working. They need backup. They call for it. But the nearest one available, officer's 2 housing units away, dealing with his own situation. It takes 6 minutes for backup to arrive. 6 minutes. 6 minutes in a prison is a long time. When you're in a cell with a combative inmate who's bigger than you and not in his right mind, 6 minutes feels like eternity. By the time backup got there, both officers were injured. One needed surgery on his shoulder. He's still not back to full duty. The other one, he quit 3 weeks later. 8 years on the job, gone. Experience. Not because he couldn't handle the inmates. It's because he realized that the system couldn't handle keeping him safe. This is truth, what's going on now. And here's the part that gets me. The investigation afterwards found no policy violations. The officer did everything right. But the report didn't mention that the facility was running at 60% staffing. It didn't mention that the crisis team had been cut. It also didn't mention that backup took 6 minutes because there was not enough officers on the floor. Because at the end of the day, when you get hurt behind the gate, it's your name on that report. I've said it on other videos. It's your name on that report. Not the budget directors who cut the crisis team, not the state legislator who voted down the CO pay raise. It's not the administrator who decided 60% was good enough for the facility to run. It lands on you. It does. And this goes across the country. And this is a problem we're all dealing with. And I appreciate each and every one of y'all. So here's where we are. We can't control whether the state legislation decides to fund correction properly. You can't control whether your facility gets the staffing it needs. You can't control whether the person next to you on the shift got the proper training or got rushed through a 2 weeks crash course. But here's what we can do as team members. You can control your awareness. You can control knowing where the gaps are and not be walking into that blind. You can control watching that rookie's back, even when nobody's watching yours. You can control speaking up when a situation is unsafe and documenting when nobody listens. And most importantly, you can control looking out for each other. That's most important because we are brothers and sisters. Because if the system won't protect you, you better believe it. You got to protect each other. Remember this, when routine replaces awareness, that's when you have a blind spot. And right now, the staffing crisis is creating a blind spot all over this profession, all over the country. Don't be the officer who walks into one without knowing it. If this hits you at home, if you're working in a facility right now, running on Skeleton's crew, and you're feeling it on every shift, drop a comment below. Tell me what your staffing levels look like now. Are they getting better? Are they getting worse? Let's put some real numbers in these comments so people outside this profession can see what we're dealing with, where we're dealing with it, and how we should try to fix it. Share this with another officer who needs to hear it. And don't forget the most important part: subscribe, hit that bell so you can get more content like this. And thank you for watching. Let's help each other. Like I said, we're brothers and sisters. We're here to fight one team.